What's up, everybody? We're back again with some more Daily Wire drama because they just can't seem to not get themselves in trouble for some reason. And ironically, it's Tucker Carlson that started this whole snowball rolling down this hill. And Tucker Carlson was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and well, I'm not going to play the clip, it's not too important. I've got the quote right here. And Tucker said, "My side has spent the last 80 years defending the dropping of nuclear bombs on civilians. Like, are you joking? If you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil." And then this guy, John Ocasio, retweeted that and said, "Absurd. Those two nukes saved lives, including Japanese lives. And the realization of nukes has protected the world for 80 years from another evil guy conqueror and world war." And yeah, Jeremy basically retweeted that guy's tweet, and that's how this whole thing started off. Because Jeremy saw Tucker on Joe, but he saw it through this guy's tweet and then tweeted this guy's tweet, or reposted it, whatever, I don't know. Then shortly after reposting that, then Jeremy hopped on his Twitter again and said, "People who deny the moon landing or suggest America is evil for the use of atomic weapons against Imperial Japan, or who say that George Bush was behind 9/11 actually hate this country." And this was the point of no return for Jeremy, because obviously this guy Jimmy here in the comments says, "Iraq war vet here. I have questions about Tower 7. And yeah, in case you don't know, Tower 7, we have lots of news media footage of Tower 7 falling at free fall speeds, and also audio of them saying that they're going to, quote unquote, pull the building as if it's a demolition of the building. Well, the reason that's fishy is because they pulled the building at 5 p.m. The attack started at 9 a.m. And it takes more than 8 hours to wire up a building to be demolished like that. So it would have been physically impossible for them to wire the entire building up to be demolished in that amount of time, which is why people stand on the Tower 7 theory, because it's so far the best evidence to prove that the government story does not line up with the facts of the case and the video that we can go on YouTube and see right now if you want. But yeah, this post obviously got ratioed into oblivion because, well, here, let's get into the comments. So Lauren Chen says, "If you question the government, you hate this country." Kind of the same thing I got from reading Jeremy's tweet. Another commenter says, "Don't you dare question George Bush. You hate America," with a picture of Obama and Bush and their families or wives. And somebody else says, "Blind belief of authority is the greatest enemy of truth," quoting Albert Einstein. And then No Soup for Knowles says, "The new right seems dangerously similar to the woke left." And I agree, No Soup for Knowles. I thought it was okay to question everything because, if we were correct about it, then somebody could very obviously and simply and quickly explain to me why I'm incorrect and what the correct answer actually is. Because, that's what you're supposed to do when you're correct. You're supposed to explain to people why you're correct. But anyways, the comments continue on with this person, MIA, posting some of the previous tweets and articles from Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro. Here we have Jeremy's tweet basically saying he's getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So everyone remembers they were pro-vaccine. I'm sure everyone remembers that. Then we also have an article here by Ben Shapiro, "Why War in Iraq is Right for America," from 2005. And lastly, we have a tweet from Ben Shapiro basically telling everybody to go get the vaccine, back from 2020. So yeah, hopefully this isn't news to you, but the Daily Wire hasn't been the best on sniffing out what is or isn't complete BS. They're good, they're just not completely correct all the time. And then there's this guy called Edward that retweets Jeremy's tweet and says, "And there it is, Jeremy and the Daily Wire just insulted the core of their audience base, who ardently believe killing babies with nukes is immoral, and that 9/11 was an inside job." And yeah, I kind of agree, because I'm like, yeah, dude, you shouldn't say that nuking innocent civilians was a good thing, because you should never, it's never a good thing to kill innocent life. It's just an undeniable truth. You should avoid killing innocent life at all costs, if possible. So if you're going to argue that it's a good thing that we killed all those civilians, then you're just crazy, because it's not a good thing to kill people. I understand that, look, don't take this the wrong way. I still believe that dropping the nukes on Japan was probably the better option and probably saved more lives than if we did an outright ground assault of Japan. Because, I mean, just look at Iwo Jima if you think that a ground assault of the Japan main islands would have been a good idea. We lost how many thousands of good men just to take Iwo Jima, an island barely bigger than a couple football fields? But yeah, that's why I think it was the lesser of the two evil options to drop the nukes on Japan. But, this is a free country. And as far as I'm concerned, we're on the internet, so you're allowed to think and say whatever you want because this is America and we have freedom of speech. So go ahead and believe whatever you want because I don't care. I'm just here saying what I think the truth is. But yeah, Jeremy sees this Edward guy's tweet and responds to it and says, wait, you believe that the core of the Daily Wire audience believes America was a bad guy in WW2 and that 9/11 was an inside job? And no, Jeremy, that's not really what he's saying at all. Because you can say that it was wrong for us to drop the nukes on Japan while still saying that America was one of the good guys in World War II. You can say both of those things, Jeremy. And not only that, like I thought it was like commonly well established like knowledge in the non-mainstream that 9/11 was an inside job because there's actually quite a bit of evidence that proves that it is. I mean, if you don't believe me, then I implore you and highly encourage you to go do the research for yourself and draw your own conclusions and not just believe what other people tell you because you'd be surprised at the evidence that you could find if you look for it. But then my boy Jeremy from the Quartering hops in and sees all this going down on Twitter and hops in and says, if you want us to believe the narrative about 9/11, unclassify the documents. And then, Jeremy Boring responds to the other Jeremy from the Quartering, says, I'll get right on that, obviously being kind of sarcastic because, like, we all know neither of the Jeremys can do anything about this. But still, it doesn't nullify Jeremy from the Quartering's point of, like, well, we'd all be willing to believe the narrative if they just unclassified the documents and explained to us why everything happened the way that it did. Because, like, we have plenty of video to prove that it didn't happen the way that the government says that it happened. Which just makes it even crazier that people like Jeremy Boring believe that 9/11 wasn't an inside job. Because, I mean, well, what other explanation is there? You really think 19 dudes with some freaking box cutters did all that? Like, come on. They never would have gotten that far. But yeah, then somebody's in the comments trolling on both the Jeremys and says, before or after your next booster? Obviously referencing the fact that Jeremy Boring has been vaccinated. Then Patrick Bet-David sees this all going down on Twitter and decides to dogpile in onto Jeremy as well. Patrick Bet-David says, Jeremy, isn't the entire premise of being a critical thinker to question things? Some of the best podcasters and influencers are those who ask questions no one else is asking. Being anti-establishment is to question the establishment's motive. No? Question mark? Jeremy Boring responds to Patrick Bet-David and says, it's not critical thinking to say that America never landed on the moon or that George W. Bush orchestrated the 9/11 attacks. It is a rejection of critical thinking. And everyone in the comments was pointing out how Jeremy Boring decided to leave out the part about dropping nukes on Japan. Obviously, Jeremy addressed that later with a weak, limp-wristed response of like, oh, that's a moral question. That's not critical thinking. Those are two separate topics. And it's just like, come on, dude. But yeah, Matt Walsh sees all this going down on Twitter and decides to give his 2 cents on the matter, which personally I agree with the most. Matt Walsh says, the decision to drop the atomic bomb was one of the most morally complex dilemmas that mankind has ever faced, and the people who made that choice had to weigh things that none of us can imagine. Millions of lives hanging in the balance. Ultimately, I think they made the right call because it seems obvious to me that if not for the bomb, many more Americans would have died. War is a brutal, terrible thing, but you must do whatever is necessary to protect your own people, America first. And I couldn't agree more because at the end of the day, which side of the line do you stand on? Do you stand in America or do you stand in Japan? And that's the way I see it, especially since Japan attacked America. They brought us into the war. So, any argument that we shouldn't have done that to Japan, well, Japan shouldn't have started it by attacking us first. So, I'm not saying that's okay to kill millions of innocent people. However, it did end the war and save millions of innocent people as well, did it not? And finally, Ben Shapiro had his video reposted by Jeremy Boring. And basically in this video that Ben Shapiro posted, this was after the whole thing went down with Jeremy Boring on Twitter, so this might have been in defense of Jeremy Boring that Ben posted this video. I'm not entirely sure. But Ben basically says, no, America was not evil for dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and no, just asking questions doesn't make you a critical thinker. Evaluating evidence, claims, and counterclaims does. Which is ironic, because it seems like that's exactly what the Daily Wire is refusing to do in this situation, especially when it comes to the morality of the question of dropping nukes on Japan. Because obviously that's a very complicated question, and who knows what the actual correct answer is. All we do know is what actually happened. So yeah, that's the drama, what the Daily Wire's been up to this past weekend, and the more and newer hot water they've been getting themselves into. So if you want to keep up with all this drama and all this ridiculousness, make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to follow me on Rumble. Oh yeah, and let me know down in the comments what you think about this, because yeah, I personally expected the Daily Wire crew to be laying low after the whole Candace Owens incident, but they just seem to keep stirring the pot. So yeah, let me know what you think they're going to do next.